Welcome to the Jeff Crilley Show. And now, here's Jeff Crilley.
Welcome back to the Jeff Crilley Show. My guest now is Barbara Elias-Perciful. She is the Executive Director of the Texas Lawyers for Children. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jeff. I'm so glad to be here, and I'm glad to have an opportunity to let your listeners know what Texas Lawyers for Children does and what abused and neglected children need right now in Texas.
Absolutely. Well, tell us about the organization.
Texas Lawyers for Children works to protect abused and neglected children from falling through cracks in the systems that are supposed to protect them. And we focus on the courts because when a child is removed from their home because of abuse and neglect, there is a court case that determines every single aspect of what's going to happen in that child's life and that child's future. So an attorney is appointed to represent the child and fight on behalf of protecting the child's legal rights and make sure that the child is safe and that the decisions made by the judge are the best possible for the child. And the judge oversees the case and makes all those decisions. And so that's why the judge and attorney are the pivotal people who determine the child's future.
Absolutely. And I know CPS is often in the news for removing a child from a home, and then the child ends up going to a worse home. Is that an issue that you're dealing with?
We deal with all the issues of problems that arise with Child Protective Services and trying to help the judge and attorney ameliorate and mitigate the harm that can be caused by cracks in the system with Child Protective Services. So that is definitely something our organization focuses on. And I'll give you some examples of what we do to try to improve what's happening for children in the foster care system.
Sure.
The judge and attorney are the ones who can make new changes happen. And so, but the attorneys who work in this field are strapped for resources. This is not like the private sector of law where an attorney has everything at his or her fingertips to do the best job in the case. The child protection cases are funded by the county. So there is a tremendous lack of resources for the attorneys helping protect these children from harms in the foster home. And so our organization provides all the tools that attorneys may need to get the best result for the child. We provide legal, medical, and psychological information for them. We've developed a tremendously unique online system where they can access a library of child abuse information. And we've developed communication tools so all the judges in the state can communicate online with each other and talk about how to improve the child protection system, talk about how to improve the court system, talk about how to improve attorney representation. And attorneys can connect with experts and mentors and colleagues and get their questions answered so that everybody can improve what's happening for these children.
Well, you talked about cracks in the system. What are the most obvious cracks that you see?
There are so many. And right now we are focusing with the legislature and trying to educate legislators about some of those cracks. And one that I would love to garner support from your listeners regarding is that, shockingly, the system is not trained well on how trauma impacts a child. And so that's very, very important because trauma does not just change a child's behavior. It impacts the child's brain development. It gives the child stress hormones that cause the child to live in a constant state of panic. Without understanding what trauma does to children, the foster parents do not know how to handle the behaviors of the child, the emotions of the child. And so one of the issues we have right now is a shortage of foster parents. And so that's why you hear about children sleeping in CPS's offices. We don't have enough foster parents. But if they aren't trained in trauma, they don't know how to handle these children, and they get kicked from foster home to foster home. The foster parents burn out and leave. And so it all stems back to a fundamental flaw in the system of not understanding trauma. That happens. It's also very shocking that Texas does not mandate that the doctors and the mental health professionals who treat abused children and evaluate and diagnose them have any training on trauma whatsoever.
Wow.
And so we have a problem in our state of these abused children ending up in psychiatric hospitals, being on tons of psychotropic medications. And that's because the people diagnosing them are misdiagnosing them as being bipolar, as having oppositional conduct disorder, and psychological disorders that aren't the real problem with the child. It's trauma. And so what that leads to is a lot of children really with their lives being ruined. And so we've been helping some legislatures with 2 particular bills. We have a call to action where we're asking the public this week to contact legislators and tell them how important trauma training is for every person in the system that deals with the abused child. That's the caseworkers, the caregivers, the attorneys, the CASA volunteers, and the medical professionals and mental health professionals who deal with the abused children. And so if people will go to facebook.com/Texas Lawyers for Children, they will be able to find our call to action and know exactly what to do to contact legislators and tell our state how important it is that the system become trauma-based and trauma-informed. You know, when people see a dog, perhaps, that's been beaten terribly, and abused, and you approach that dog and it growls at you, but you know what's happened to the child, you understand why the dog is growling. But these children act out in ways where they may have explosive behavior or be growling in their way of panic and fear. But the system, people in the system treat them as if they're being willfully disobedient and need to be medicated with 5 and 6 medications that make them zombies or make them worse. And so it's a downward spiral, and the system needs to be educated. So we hope people will join in and help us with this education of the legislators.
Is there a case that stands out in your mind where, you don't have to name a name, but a child that your organization impacted that touches your heart and says, this is why I'm doing this?
Oh, there are so many, absolutely so many. I'll tell you about the case that got me into this field. I was at a big law firm, merrily on my way doing business litigation, and then someone suggested that I take a pro bono case to represent an abused child, and that just captured my heart to see that the law can be used to protect children, and that's these are the most vulnerable people in society, and they need the law to protect them. They need attorneys fighting on their behalf. But my client was a girl who'd been sexually abused by her father as long as she could remember, and raped every day by him. And so my job was to find out the facts and then make recommendations to the judge as to what should happen with her and make sure that while she was in foster care, she was being protected. She ended up spending some time with her grandmother. It was my job to make sure that the court knew if the dad was going over there and visiting and shouldn't have been there. So to see that the law can protect children, that's what captured my heart.
Wow. How do people get a hold of you?
TexasLawyersForChildren.org. And if people want to, it's Barbara at TexasLawyersForChildren.org is my email. People can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/TexasLawyersForChildren. And also, if people want to learn more, we're having an important fundraising event for our organization at the Rustic a week from Tuesday, May 2nd, from 6 to 8, with the fabulous Crystal Yates singing, and I'll be talking about our work there, and people can come out and support this effort to protect the children.
Outstanding. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
Coming up next, a nonprofit that is making a difference in the lives of children here in North Texas, and they've been doing it for decades. A look at Friends of Wednesday's Child next on The Jeff Crilley Show.
More of The Jeff Crilley Show coming up.